Good afternoon, everyone. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Professor Emma Flynn, Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Research and Enterprise at Queen's University, Belfast. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this live event organised to mark World Cancer Day. Since 2000, the 4th of February is a date recognised internationally as World Cancer Day, when there is a special focus on cancer with the aim of raising awareness and encouraging its prevention, detection and treatment. I'm proud to share with you that today a new international consortium led by researchers from the Patrick G. Johnston Centre for Cancer Research at Queen's is being announced. This consortium, headed by my colleague Dr. Philip Dunn, will work to determine better ways to treat patients diagnosed with early stage bowel cancer. At Queen's, we are committed to facilitating discussions on key issues impacting society and to providing opportunities for new initiatives to address global challenges. And cancer is certainly a disease that has touched each of us in some direct or indirect way. I'm delighted, therefore, that through the Patrick G. Johnston Centre for Cancer Research and with support from Intertrade Ireland, this event has been planned, affording discussion around innovative cancer research and care. We are joined today by an international panel of experts, and I'd like to welcome all of you for joining me today. I look forward to hearing our speakers' thoughts about enhancing collaborative cancer research going forward between Northern Ireland, Ireland and other countries such as the United States. And now I'll briefly explain the format of our event. This is a very compact 1-hour event. First of all, Professor Chris Scott will speak next to outline briefly the work of the Patrick G. Johnston Centre for Cancer Research, of which he is director. Chris will then hand over to our Queen's colleague, Professor Mark Lawler. He is the Associate Pro-Vice-Chancellor and Chair in Translational Cancer Genomics at the Patrick G. Johnston Centre for Cancer Research. Mark will give a short presentation to set the scene for the panel discussion. Mark was architect of the European Cancer Patients' Bill of Rights, which he launched with patients and healthcare professionals in the European Parliament on World Cancer Day in 2014. And for this impact, he received the 2018 European Health Award. Mark is passionate about translating research for the benefits of patients and society. His presentation is entitled Time for an All-Ireland Cancer Moonshot, and he invites us to consider an ambitious and groundbreaking collaboration to improve cancer outcomes on the island of Ireland. I'm delighted now to introduce each of our panel members. After Mark's presentation, we will hear opening comments from each in turn. Paula Bradshaw, MLA, is the chair of the Northern Ireland Assembly All-Party Group on Cancer and a member of Northern Ireland's Assembly's Committee for Health. Dr. William Dehut is joining us from the United States, is the Centre for Cancer Research Scientific Director for Clinical Research at the world-renowned US National Cancer Institute. Professor Liam Gallagher of University College Dublin is Director of the Conway Institute of Biomolecular and Biomedical Research and Professor of Cancer Biology. And Dr. Ruth Barrington is Board Member of Cancer Trials Ireland, the body that has been organising cancer research trials in Ireland since 1996. If you would like to ask a question, then you can do so by using the Submit a Question section on the right of your screen. I will put as many of your questions to this panel as I possibly can. However, we may not have time, but it has been agreed that Professor Lawler will endeavour to respond individually where possible to your questions. Lastly, I'd like to thank Intertrade Ireland for their support for this event, in particular Margaret Harty, a member of the organisation's senior management team, who will speak to close this event. And now I'll hand over to Professor Chris Scott. Chris.
Thank you, Emma. So welcome everybody. Under normal times, we'd all be meeting in our centre, and I'd welcome you at the door to talk about the research that we do here at Queen's. But just a little bit of background for people who aren't familiar with the Johnston Cancer Centre. We are a centre based at Queen's University at Belfast, originally set up to complement the clinical cancer research centre that was established at the City Hospital. So bringing together the best researchers in the university to tackle the disease that is cancer. The centre was led from inception right through to the building and the initial years by Professor Patrick Johnston. The centre first started virtually in 2004, and then we moved into this building in 2007. And the building was actually opened by Senator George Mitchell back in 2007. And it's fascinating when you look at this photograph now to realise that only Senator Mitchell is still with us. We lost Paddy, who was a Vice-Chancellor at that stage back in June 2017, and left an enormous gap in our professional and personal lives. And in January last year, the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Ian Greer, dedicated the centre to Paddy by renaming it from the Centre for Cancer Research to the Patrick G. Johnston Centre for Cancer Research. Our aims are really threefold. First and foremost, we're here to undertake the best quality cancer research that we can to benefit patients regionally, nationally, internationally. We're here to train the next generation of scientists and clinicians that will take on this work and hopefully end the battle against cancer. And finally, we're here to support industry, to help create jobs, to make Ireland a better place, to stop the brain drain and become world-renowned in our biomedical research. So with that very brief introduction, I'd like now to hand over to my colleague, Professor Lawler.
Thanks very much indeed, Chris, and thank you to everybody. We've had over 430 registering for the event, which is really incredible. It just shows the interest that people have in relation to cancer research on the island of Ireland. So what I'd like to do really is just set the scene for on World Cancer Day of this idea for an all-island approach to cancer and cancer research. And just to highlight, back in 2016, I was privileged to be in the audience at the American Society of Clinical Oncology when Joe Biden, then Vice President, launched the Cancer Moonshot. And it was really inspirational to hear what he said in relation to what can be achieved. And so that's why we're now, 5 years later, saying, well, can we do the same here in Ireland? Unfortunately, cancer has now become the number one killer on the island of Ireland. It's overtaken heart disease. 1 in 2 people will develop cancer. 1 in 4 in their lifetime will die of cancer. And unfortunately, we're going to see a doubling of the incidence of cancer by 2045. So 53,000 cancers across the island diagnosed. And unfortunately, what we've seen as well is that the impact of COVID has been very significant in relation to cancer patients and cancer services. What we need to realize, and we're knowing more about this as we perform more research in the area of cancer, is that cancer is both a multifactorial disease, but also is multimorbid, i.e. it happens with other diseases, which can sometimes complicate and make cancer more difficult to treat. And what we really need to do is to have a concerted effort, bringing together the best minds from across the island of Ireland to address this significant challenge, and really to look at ways in which we can develop prevention approaches, early diagnosis and personalised treatment to really deliver next generation cancer care to our patients. Why do we need a new approach? Because what we've realised is that cancer is not just on its own what happens in relation to the disease. We also see influences, for example, in relation to other areas like obesity and cancer. We have challenges that we can see in relation to both the UK and Ireland. We're one of the most obese nations in Europe. And so that intersect between cancer, obesity and inflammation is really what we need to attack in order to address the issues in relation to cancer. In order to go forward, I'm going to look back to 1999, when a very significant event occurred. The Memorandum of Understanding was signed at Stormont in the Parliament, and it established the Northern Ireland National Cancer Institute Cancer Consortium, also accompanied by an international conference which took place at the waterfront in Belfast. The focus on enhancing both cancer research, education and cancer control led to this All-Ireland Cancer Consortium, which has now been active for the last 21 years. So what have we achieved by working together between Ireland, Northern Ireland and the United States? We have an IT platform that's facilitated telemedicine right across the island. The 2 cancer registries came together and created an all-island cancer atlas. Clinical trials infrastructure in cancer was established. Cancer prevention, joint research projects, and cancer health economic programs, so training programs were developed and delivered. In fact, over 500 different people at different stages of their career from the island of Ireland all went to the National Cancer Institute to learn from the experts there and to bring that expertise back to Ireland. And for example, recently we've had a new Queen's University Belfast NCI doctoral training program in precision cancer medicine, and our first two PhD students are currently out in the NCI doing their research there. So a lot of different advantages that have occurred due to the All-Island Cancer Consortium. But one of the things we wanted to do is to see, but can we actually measure the impact of what has happened? And so we looked back qualitatively, but also quantitatively at what's happened over the last 20 years due to the All-Island Cancer Consortium. We've doubled collaborative research, so we've built a lot of capacity, but also the quality of that research has been much better than in the past. We've also delivered cancer clinical trials to 35,000 patients. Yes, 35,000 patients on the island of Ireland, and delivered significant transnational cooperation, which has enhanced both cancer research activity, but also improved cancer services and delivered better cancer outcomes for our patients. But this is only the end of the beginning, not the beginning of the end. And one of the things that we've seen, and we're really glad to have Bill Dahoud here with us today, and at a meeting on the 9th of March at the NCI, just before lockdown, Bill said the following: based on the evidence that we showed there, Ireland and Northern Ireland are now firmly embedded on the global cancer research map. And you can see here us meeting with senior leadership at the NCI, including Ned Sharpless, the NCI director. So really, the time is now for a next generation cancer research institute that will deliver for the island of Ireland, that will bring together the best minds from across the island to answer one of the great challenges to humankind, that is, unfortunately, cancer. Cancer knows no borders, so neither should we. So this All-Island Cancer Research Institute will bring together cancer researchers right across the island of Ireland. It will build critical mass in key areas that we can help to deliver better care for our patients. It will also give us data, but allow us to translate that data into intelligence that will deliver better outcomes for our patients. It will actually attract world-leading expertise and also investment to the island of Ireland, and will, over time, lead us to deliver global leadership in the cancer, obesity, inflammation intersect. Most importantly, this is absolutely going to be delivered with patients at the heart, with the patient, around the patient, and for the patient. Everybody working together. You can see the different cogs in these wheels here. Really, we need to bring all that together in order to deliver the best outcome for our patients. And this is the program. It is an expensive program, 40 to 50 million, but that's what we need to do over the next 10 years. Otherwise, we risk a cancer epidemic that really is going to make it very difficult for us in order to deliver better outcomes for our patients. 3 themes in the program: discovery science, so understanding more about cancer, and also training the next generation of cancer researchers. Delivering innovation into the healthcare system, using tools such as digital health and artificial intelligence, the importance of biobanking, delivering the latest innovations in clinical trials, but also driving our knowledge economy in relation to spin-out, spin-in companies, small, medium enterprise opportunities, and investment from industry. And we're building on the great foundation, just showing you here across the island, all the different initiatives: Cancer Trials Ireland, the Northern Ireland Cancer Registry, led by Anna Gavin, the Precision Medicine Centre of Excellence, led by Manuel Saltotelis, the Northern Ireland Biobank, led by Jackie James, Breast Predict, led by one of the panellists today, Liam Gallagher, Precision Oncology Ireland, and also, obviously, as Chris already said, at the centrepiece, the Patrick G. Johnston Centre for Cancer Research. So we have the ability, it's bringing all that together in order to really deliver for our patients. And also not only enhancing our health, but also the wealth of society in relation to looking at both supporting vibrant and innovative startup companies, but also attracting inward investment from biotech and from pharma. So really creating that permissive climate that will deliver not only for our patients, but also for our society. And you might have thought 40 to 50 million is a lot of money. It is. But if you look, if we could reduce cancer by 1% annually, we would save €8.5 billion over the next 20 years. And also, we really need to deliver for our society, for our patients, many of whom lose their own incomes because of the increased medical costs associated with cancer diagnosis. This will benefit everybody. Most importantly, cancer patients and the general public, better diagnostics and medicines, the scientific community growing that nexus together so we can really deliver and become world leading. The clinical community, so we can enhance our healthcare systems. A very important time at the moment in Northern Ireland. We're developing a new Northern Ireland cancer strategy, so we can contribute to that. And then, as I said, new product development and its clinical implementation through industry. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that we need to grasp with both hands. So reinvigorating the All-Ireland Cancer Consortium and the signing of the revised Memorandum of Understanding, which will happen next month. As I said, we want to bring together the best minds to address this health challenge. Cancer does not respect any borders, so why should we? We need to compete, not against each other, but against our common enemy, which is cancer. Doing nothing, not an option. By 2050, a patient on the island of Ireland will be diagnosed with cancer every 7 minutes. So we have to act now. Our citizens deserve action. We asked the question, an all-island cancer moonshot? Yes, we can. Remember, small countries can do big things. I'm a sports fanatic. I still remember Jerry Armstrong in the 1982 World Cup scoring the winning goal against the host Spain, and also Ireland beating New Zealand, then world champions in rugby in 2016. So we can deliver. But the most important thing, and if you remember earlier, I showed you a picture of the Giant's Causeway. It would be a lasting legacy to the man who started this all, a true giant of medicine on this island, Professor Paddy Johnston, who we all miss so much. And his phrase, I think, sums everything up. Dream no small dreams, for they have no power to move the hearts of men or women. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. That was really informative and thought-provoking. It's great to see the level of capacity that we've built up, the level of success, and a really integrated vision that we think could have significant impact in this really important mission. I think what I'd like to do now is to invite each of the panel members to in turn share their thoughts with us before we then turn to question and answer session. We'd first like to hear from Paula Bradshaw, followed by William DeHout, then Professor Liam Gallagher, and finally from Dr. Ruth Barrington. So I'll hand over to Paula now.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. On World Cancer Day, I would pay tribute to the work of those people on this call and who have continued to provide services, advice and support to the many thousands of people who received a cancer diagnosis during the pandemic. I have chaired the All-Party Group on Cancer at the Northern Ireland Assembly for the last 3 years, and during this time we have had two major achievements, which were only made possible through the collaboration with cancer charities, health professionals and academic researchers. These achievements were firstly the reform of the individual funding request, otherwise known as the Cancer Drugs Fund, and the agreement from the Department of Health to a comprehensive cancer strategy for Northern Ireland. And I would place on record my thanks to all those professionals and who have lived experience, who have given so much of their time through the various work streams to develop a strategy and put forward recommendations and new services and approaches. Recent news of missed red flag procedures and postponed surgeries here in Northern Ireland have been extremely worrying and highlight the need to speed up the transformation of our health and social care system. The Health Minister's announcement last year of the effective stepping down of the Transformation Implementation Group and replacing it with the Management Board, charging this with rebuilding our health service post-pandemic while ensuring that the opportunity is taken forward to put back better. I think this presents an opportunity to influence how all island systems and collaborations could be explored and taken forward. When I mentioned recently the urgent need to engage with the independent sector to mitigate against postponed cancer surgeries, there was almost universal support for this. And I say this because generally there will be backlash and commentary to improve the public sector and not bolster the private sector. And I believe this support was forthcoming because the truth is, at the end of the day, people recognise how dangerous a disease cancer is and can be, and that people who have received a diagnosis do not care how or where they receive their treatment, as long as it is timely and as effective as possible. And I think this maturity bodes well for AllIsland discussions, which may not have been possible in the past. So I do believe that coming through this pandemic, having witnessed these delays and misdiagnosis, etc., there is a golden opportunity to seek to advance discussions with the Department of Health here and in the South, and to firm up mechanisms and systems for fighting cancer together. And lastly, I would just say that I do know that the Health Committee at Stormont would really appreciate regular updates on this work going forward. Thank you.
My name is Bill Dayhut. I'm and it's such an honor for me to be here today on World Cancer Day. I personally knew Patty Johnston quite well, and forever will be inspired and touched by really his incredible work. Some of you may have heard we had an election over here recently, and we were actually honored yesterday to have Dr. Jill Biden virtually meet with us in honor of World Cancer Day. And this was really her first visit to the NIH to show us the importance that she and her family place on cancer. As you probably know, cancer is very personal to her, having lost her son, Beau, as well as many breast cancer deaths throughout her family. And I think what really touched me about what Dr. Biden said, and I think is very important today, is she really talked about the importance of collaboration. And over again, the discussion was made how important collaboration is in order to move progress against cancer forward. And when we think about collaboration, we think it not only between physicians, obviously, but it's important with government agencies and industries, and most importantly with the patients, because through those partnerships, I think we really can be impactful. And, I was fortunate to be at Stormont in 1999. And when I look at the progress that has been made, it's truly astounding. And, what's been done on the island of Ireland is really, really inspirational, actually, I think, throughout the world, primarily about the dedication and interest that's put into not only the cancer care, which because there are no other doctors that are as talented, as dedicated as the Irish, but the infrastructure really needed in order to drive progress against cancer. Things are really different now than they were 20 years ago. 20 years ago, physicians were very isolated. We were very empiric. We just kind of mixed drugs together. But we've really learned over time how important it is to directly take the science for the individual patients, from the patients, and actually to make an impact. And I think really the opportunities working from the NCI with the island of Ireland are really spectacular. The opportunities for clinical trials and prevention, and what we actually call interception. When interception is really sort of that bridge between prevention and actually symptomatic cancer. So trials that can, for patients that may have a diagnosis of cancer at a very early stage, if we can come up with treatments, whether they're a vaccine or otherwise, to really block the cancer from going forward, I think the infrastructure in places like Ireland are really what are necessary to make things go ahead. So I'm very happy to be here. I know Dr. Sharpless and others are very excited about the progress that's been made and about our opportunities. And this is such a great panel. And thanks again. And I'm looking forward to hearing the comments from Dr. Gallagher. So Liam.
Thanks very much, Dr. Dahoud. My name is Liam Gallagher. I'm based in University College Dublin. And again, I really share the enthusiasm of Professor Lawler in terms of, I suppose, a vision going forward. I think we can learn a lot from the past in terms of what works and what hasn't worked. But really, we have the foundation stones in place. And again, unfortunately, I've never been to Giant's Causeway, but it's part, it's classic where there's lots of nice things in your home country, but you don't actually often visit it. But again, the analogy there of the stepping stones, they are like stepping stones. And we have a lot of the stepping stones in place Again, if you look at Queen's, you have really a starship there in terms of the Precision Medicine Centre or Centre of Excellence, and really great integration of cancer research from basic research, translational and clinical research. Down south, I have the fortune of participating in a program that Mark talked about, Precision Oncology Ireland. It's a program funded by Science Foundation Ireland, directed by Professor Walter Kolch. And this is really a very interesting program where we're brought together 5 academic partners and, importantly, 6 cancer charities. Again, we have an important cancer charity sector in Ireland, across the island, and then also 8 companies. So we have this kind of partnership approach between the academic research arena, cancer charities and industry working together to solve, I suppose, key challenges in terms of cancer. The other thing to note is that we already have a good track record or excellent track record of individual interactions or pre-existing collaborations between researchers in Northern Ireland and across the US. For example, there's a variety of people have been funded under the US-Ireland Partnership Program or Tripartite Program, which provides precedence. But really, I suppose what we want to do now is take that to the next level where we can actually build a broader and long-term vision. Again, look at the next 20 years and really imagine how we can actually bring things forward. Because we know cancer research, it's a team-based approach. It requires different people from different backgrounds to come together. We have all of the skills on the island. We just need to connect the dots. And I suppose that's really what, the program that Mark talked about is really providing that gel for connection. So I'm going to pass over to Dr. Ruth Barrington, who's who's on the board of Cancer Trials.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to have this opportunity on World Cancer Day to speak about the origins of the Northern Ireland National Cancer Institute Cancer Consortium. And as you've heard, the consortium has achieved so much for patients with cancer, for professionals working in the field of cancer, and the development of cancer policy on the island of Ireland. As you've already heard, much of the credit for establishing the consortium must go to the late and much lamented Professor Patrick Johnston. Paddy Johnston returned to Ireland in 1996 to take up the chair of oncology at Queen's University after a stellar career in the National Cancer Institute. It was an auspicious time to return to Ireland, north and south, because cancer services had been prioritised by both ministers for reform and investment. And ever so slowly, all parties to the conflict in Northern Ireland, with the active involvement of the US government, were edging towards a settlement, which was achieved with the signing of the Belfast Agreement in 1998. Paddy, with his usual strategic sense, spotted an opportunity to harness the zeitgeist of the time to raise the profile of cancer treatment and research on the island of Ireland. After the Belfast Agreement was signed, President Clinton called on US business and academic leaders to do what they could to underpin the peace process in Ireland. Paddy approached his former colleagues in the NCI, Dr. Rick Klausner, director, and Dr. Ed Liu, and together they proposed the idea of an all-Ireland US Cancer Consortium, a proposal that was enthusiastically supported by the chief medical officers of the 2 departments of health, Dr. Jim Kiley and Dr. Etta Campbell. The proposal also tapped into the extraordinary commitment of both communities to the NHS in Northern Ireland, which managed throughout the Troubles to be a sectarian-free zone. And it also spoke to the shared values of the health services, both north and south. As you heard, the first MOU establishing the consortium was signed in October 1999. As ever, a consortium needs a structure to actually make things happen, and that was provided by a governing board representative of the 3 governments. And it provided momentum and continuity to the work of the consortium. The first chair of the board was Dr. Joe Harford of the NCI, who ably guided us through those early years and included key figures in cancer care and research in both parts of the island and the NCI. And slowly we advanced the goals of the consortium. As Chief Executive of the Health Research Board at the time, I was privileged to be a member of this board, as was my opposite number, Professor Bob Stout, then Director of the R&D Office in Belfast. And I would like to record the extraordinary commitment of the NCI to making the consortium work, and the expertise and the doors that were opened to us in the NCI to facilitate engagement on cancer research and cancer care. And Mark has summarised the extraordinary impact that it's had since. So the consortium forged a strategic alliance between Ireland, Northern Ireland and the US to improve cancer services and patient care and to promote North-South collaboration in cancer research and development. It may not have been the only factor in the transformation of cancer care and research on the island of Ireland, but it sure made a huge difference to the progress that we've made. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all of our speakers for their contributions. I'm keeping an eye on the questions as they come in, and I will say to all the panel members, it's lovely to see there's just a lot of comments as well about an enthusiasm for this approach and the idea that there's cross-border collaboration. So I'd now like to open up the discussion by directing some of the questions to our panel, but I will to say to everybody who's in the audience, please submit your questions and through the submit questions box on your screen, because we'd like to have a very vibrant discussion that you are part of. So the first question I have, I'd like to direct to Paula. So Paula, as chair of the all-party group on cancer in Northern Ireland Assembly, what do you see as the key challenges that your committee faces, and how might an all-island approach help these?
Thank you very much for the question. I suppose I was speaking at an event not that long ago, and I put an overcoat on, and when I took it off, the lapels of my jacket had everything from Diabetes UK, MS Society, and I suppose there are so many illnesses and diseases and issues out there in terms of healthcare that are competing for their issues to be addressed, so to speak. So I suppose that would be the biggest issue. We have a growing number of all-party groups at Stormont, and it's really just up to us to keep our work very focused and in a way that can help the Department of Health going forward. And I suppose, as I said, the strategy, the Northern Ireland-wide comprehensive cancer strategy, I think that's helped focus us. And I suppose the opportunity really is the fact that we are in such dire straits here in Northern Ireland with our extensive waiting lists. I would say probably amongst the worst in the world. Diagnostic treatment is becoming more expensive, but more effective, as is the actual treatment. So I suppose there are opportunities, but we have to present them in such a way that put forward a very, very problem-solving approach to the Department of Health, so that they can really buy into it and see the benefit. And even if that is around health economics, so be it. But I think there's an opportunity to present it in that way.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. That was very comprehensive. So I think the next question I have is for William. That's for Bill. So Bill, we've seen how the Northern Ireland National Cancer Institute Cancer Consortium has had a significant impact over the last 21 years. What do you think for us are the opportunities, and I guess also the challenges going forward, particularly with a president who oversees the development of a Cancer Moonshot program?
Well, I think this is the time, and I think there are really tremendous opportunities. One thing we've learned, and I think this is something important for those who are in the political sphere, that patients who are on clinical trials get better care and a better outcome regardless of their treatment. And ultimately, the more we provide the infrastructure for patients and more we encourage patients on clinical trials, we actually can move healthcare forward and actually ultimately provide, I think, healthcare savings for patients going forward. I think there always are challenges. We've learned through this pandemic that really disease has no borders, and coming together is the only way to make progress. But it's also very difficult in most systems to get beyond sort of the needs of individual institutions, countries, and provinces. So I think learning how to make sure that credit and expenses are shared in a way that really can drive things forward. I think the opportunities are endless. There's an incredibly well-trained faculty on the island of Ireland. We have personal collaborations at the NCI, so the NCI are very anxious for collaborations, and I think infrastructure is being built. And I think as long as sort of the support is given to on both sides of the pond, as I guess you would say, I think we have a tremendous opportunity. So we're very happy to work with you guys.
I suppose it's the power of collaboration, isn't it? It's the value added of those networks and how we work together rather than compete against each other, I think, which is something that came up from Mark's presentation too. So the next question I'd like to give is to Liam Gallagher. So the question I have is, the opportunity to tackle cancer on an all-island basis seems compelling. And what would you see as being the first key steps?
Thanks very much for that question. I think really the key is stakeholder engagement. I think Mark indicated the kind of key stakeholders that have been identified. Obviously, the patients being at the centre, and I suppose again in Northern Ireland there's a good track record in terms of having close involvement of patients, not just as asides to research, but actually as co-developers of research and key participants and involved in the activity. I suppose in Ireland we had been a little bit further behind, but I suppose over the last 3 or 4 years, particularly driven by the patient voice and cancer research activity, driven by a colleague of mine, Professor Amanda McCann, we've made some strides there. So essentially, obviously the key aspect is having effective stakeholder engagement, particularly with patients, but then the other stakeholders in the academic arena, industry plays a very significant role. Again, if we're talking about delivering innovations into the clinical environment, we have to have close and effective partnerships and mutual partnerships with industry to mediate that. And again, I think I'm a passionate believer in terms of developing, I suppose, an ecosystem. And I think Mark talked about this kind of analogy of the Cambridge cluster. You've got 2 Cambridges on the east coast of the US, and then one in the UK, which have this kind of great ecosystem in terms of close engagement with academia. I think there's an opportunity to do that in an all-island context. We have some amazing spin-outs. Good example of that from Queen's would be Sonray Analytics, this very good digital pathology AI company. You've got like Onc Therapeutics spun out of Galway on CAR NK cell therapy, very innovative therapy context. Importantly, the other group really is the other stakeholder is the healthcare system. What we're talking about is transitioning innovations more rapidly into the healthcare system, and we need very close engagement, and then also at a governmental level, because ultimately we can talk about developing new innovations, but if we don't engage with the government parties or the relevant departments to ensure that these innovations provide value, particularly as Mark talked about in terms of health economic value, it's going to be difficult to actually embed those. So that engagement process is the first part, and that's what's happening over the next. It's already happened, but we're really accelerating that over the next couple of months.
Okay, thank you very much. You touched a bit on all the different stakeholders, and I'd like to bring in Chris Scott now to give us a little bit of a reflection on a little more on what the role industry can play in tackling cancer from an all-island basis. So, Chris.
Yes, thanks, Emma. So, it is as Liam said, it's a 3-pronged approach. It's healthcare, it's academia, it's industry. It's the only way that we can tackle this. We have been very good. So south of the border, we've been very good in the past in the manufacturing side of pharma. Up north, we have been probably very good at startups and bringing through new concepts. But now, on an all-Ireland basis, we need to really bring that together. We need to see the maturations of some of the companies that can attract better funding. We know the analogy was used there with Cambridge, the Cambridges. It's much easier for the Cambridges to bring in venture capital funding than it is for us here in Dublin or Belfast. But things are starting to happen there. We've seen recent success in Dublin. In these companies coming through, and one in particular bought over by Roche. So it's really important that we develop that. It means that we can keep people. We're training brilliant people here in Ireland. We need to keep them here. Yes, get exposure to what's happening in the States and learn from the the fantastic academic base in the States, but come back just like Paddy did, and really establish the skills here and develop the sector. So, you can't do cancer research without companies. So when it comes to the pharma side, that's where the prosecution of new drugs happens. You can see that with just what we've seen with AstraZeneca taking on the Oxford vaccine, for example. And working with them early is key, and getting partnerships in place that work for the benefit of everybody is paramount to that. And that's something that we have been working at in Belfast. We have the city deal. We're looking at how companies can engage with that. We're also looking then at initiatives such as the Strength in Places, the Innovate UK Levelling Up Agenda initiative, to try and create, if you like, a common infrastructure that companies and academia can all benefit from, and that we can all target towards the common goal of improved outcome for cancer patients.
Thank you. It's that important kind of interface between skills and industry and academia, and that cross-collaboration approach, which is really going to make the difference. And that's what I keep hearing from the answers that I'm hearing today. So Ruth, I'd like to move to you now. You were CEO of the Health Research Board of Ireland when the consortium was at its heights, and you must be really proud of what it has achieved. But as we look forward, how can we do even better within this space?
Thank you. Well, I would mention maybe three things. The first is to re-establish or re-sign or recommit to the consortium, and hopefully that will happen very soon, and an implementation board will be re-established to really put flesh on the bones of what the consortium is all about. Secondly, I think the consortium, maybe the next phase of the consortium, could begin to move towards Mark's vision, his moonshot of an All-Ireland Cancer Institute, which might be a permanent legacy of the consortium on this island. I think that would be a wonderful goal to move towards. Then thirdly, wearing my hat as a board member of Clinical Trials, Cancer Trials Ireland, I would like to just point out the opportunities that exist for an all-island approach to participation, the organisation and participation in clinical trials. We should be moving towards a situation where if you're a cancer patient in Belfast or in Cork, you should be able to participate in an appropriate clinical trial anywhere on the island, and I think that's what we need to be aiming for. We have some great examples of collaboration in clinical trials. I suppose the Taylor X study was a classic example of where cooperation, north and south, in a US ECOG-led oncology clinical trial led to transformation in clinical care of women with breast cancer. So there are trials that are Cancer Trials Ireland is sponsoring that are open in Belfast, European trials and North American trials. So the genesis is there, the basis is there for moving forward on an all-island basis to cancer clinical trials. So I would love to see progress made in that area over the next couple of years.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a question now that I think is going to be for Mark, and it's from Dr. Adriana Rossi, who's the Associate Director from the Weill Cornell Centre in New York. And it's not so much about the long-term vision, actually, but it's more about the current situation that we find ourselves in. So how has the COVID pandemic affected oncology care in Ireland? We have found that beyond the infection itself, the practices put in place, such as limiting patients' visits to the clinic, have greatly affected our ability to provide best care to our patients. So Mark, could you comment on that?
Thanks very much, and thanks very much, Adriana. You're very welcome. Great to have you on the webinar from New York today. And yes, unfortunately, and we've done quite a lot of work in this over the last year. Unfortunately, we're seeing really challenging situation in relation to the impact of COVID on both cancer patients and cancer systems, both hitting the diagnostic pathway. So, for example, for red flag referrals, we've seen that there's been a drop of 70%, i.e. 7 out of 10 people who may have a suspicion of cancer haven't been able to access a cancer specialist. Similarly, 4 to 10 people who are receiving chemotherapy haven't been able to have their chemotherapy at the right time. So we've seen significant impacts on all parts of the cancer pathway. One of the things we're now starting to do is respond to that. And we've launched at the European level a 7-point plan to build back smarter and better. Unfortunately, one of the things I think that COVID has shown us in the context of cancer is that our systems weren't resilient enough. And so we need to build back not only better, but also smarter than we did before. And we're continuing to monitor that situation, particularly as part of DataCan, which is the UK's Health Data Research Hub for Cancer. And we'd love to share experience with you because, as Bill said, that's how we learn. We learn by actually sharing experience, sharing best practice, but also sharing the things we didn't do so well and learning from that. So would love to reach out to you in more detail to talk about that.
Okay, so I'm now going to move on to some more of the questions that we've had from the audience, and I'd like to ask Paula the next one. And we've talked about industry, we've talked about academia, we've talked about cross-border collaborations, but the question that I have here is, what role can cancer charities in the third sector play in this initiative? So could I start off with you, Paula, and then I don't know if there's anybody else who would like to come in on that question. So Paula.
Thank you very much. Well, a lot of the work through the All-Party Group is driven by Cancer Focus and then very much supported by Action Cancer and Cancer Research UK and stuff. So I think a lot of the driving force behind improvement in services here in Northern Ireland has come from those people who are hearing from the cancer patients themselves. So again, I pay tribute to them today. One of my big concerns about this pandemic here in the North is that we've launched recently a mental health strategy, and I've asked the Health Minister what is he going to do about a physical health strategy going forward, because as we saw in Mark's presentation, there are some cancers that if we could deal with some of the lifestyle issues around smoking, drinking, obesity, healthy eating, etc., that we could possibly do a lot more around prevention. And I think that our cancer charities are absolutely at the forefront of that public health messaging. So I suppose there could be more all-island stuff around that in terms of the social media and the campaigns, but also then the on-the-ground activities when we get through the pandemic, because I think prevention is probably a key part in our fight against cancer on this island.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to also offer that question to Liam, who I think wants to come in, and also to Chris, who I know will have something he wants to say with that too. So Liam.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, I think it's important to note again that the cancer charities have played a really critical role in terms of advancing cancer research in Ireland. Again, the example I gave of Precision Oncology Ireland, where 6 cancer charities have come together in an unprecedented manner, working collectively towards a common goal. Again, I had the benefit of running this program that Mark talked about, Breast Predict, which really provided a key example of an integrated interinstitutional approach to tackling key issues in breast cancer that was fundamentally all supported by the Irish Cancer Society. I think the key role of the cancer charities is that they're also quite close, as I think was mentioned by Paula. They're very close to closer probably to the patients than some other sectors, particularly some of the funding agencies. So I think they have a closer kind of alignment with patients, and I think that's critical. So look, fundamentally, they have to be part of the construction going forward, and because they've played this key role.
Okay, Chris, would you like to come in now?
Yes, thank you. So the relationship with the charities is so important, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all our regional and national charities that feed into the work that we do. And, I could give you loads of examples of maybe even, a small charity gives a small amount of money, and then that has led to a bigger idea and gone on to some fantastic science that can benefit patients. So all donations and all charity work is so important to what we do. Now, one of the key differences, though, I'd like to highlight between what we have here in Ireland and UK versus across the pond is that the cancer research is much more dependent on that charity sector than here than it is in the States. Now, that means then, of course, with the problems that many of the charities are now facing because of the pandemic, they're not able to do their normal fundraising events. They're not able to go to marathons and all those things that they do. That has an impact on us. And the full extent of that it'll have to be realised. But so any initiatives like this that we can actually bolster right now and redefine how we do our cancer research is very, very welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a message from within the panel saying that Bill would like to say a positive about COVID, which I think we would all like to hear.
So again, perhaps not about COVID actually, but how it actually impacted the way we do clinical trials and clinical research. So we immediately realized we could not have patients traveling to large cancer centers. And so what our government agencies did was really change some of our regulatory rules very rapidly. So the FDA allowed us to go ahead and ship investigational drugs to patients' houses. We basically allowed investigational bloods to be drawn at local laboratories and shipped to cancer centers. We did much more in the way of telemedicine. And I think even this call itself, if we were setting this up, 2 years ago, we would have, how do we call Ireland? What's the country code? And now this is all very natural to us. So telemedicine and making really cancer care much more patient-centric is something we've learned. And I think it really can facilitate, cross borders, across countries, because if we can really have the cancer care done locally for the patient as opposed to traveling to a cancer center, I think we have a much better ability to attract patients and actually push the field forward. So, thanks.
Okay, so if I turn now to some of the other questions that have come through, and I'll turn to Mark and then to Ruth, if you would like to in that order. We're getting a lot of questions about the role of patients, and of course they will be the absolute centre of what we are doing and the focus that we should be thinking about. But also in addition to that, it's about how patient advocates can help and get involved with the AllIsland Cancer Research Project. So whether or not you have some thoughts about the voice of the patient within the process and also within this specific initiative. So Mark and then Ruth, please.
Thank you very much, Emma, and great question. And yes, very much the patient at the heart. Yesterday, I spoke for the Pink Ladies in Derry, and one of the things I said was it needs to be the patient as an active participant and not as a passive recipient. So we need to go away from the past in relation to patients being passive recipients in relation to research and clinical care to being active participants. One of the things we're organising as part of this engagement is a patient event, a patient-focused event. But we want patients in from the very start, and that's why we're socialising this message now. For example, in DataCam, where patients are actively involved, and some of them I can see on this webinar, they were involved at the very start. They helped us write the research grant. They're involved on every committee. Two of the patients sit on the board. That's the only way we can deliver. So we would welcome, and I've said to Emma, I'm very happy to take, we're not going to be able to take every question during the course of the hour, but I'm very happy. So please, contact me and contact any of my colleagues, and we will work with you, because this has to be everybody. We're all in this together, and that's the only way we're going to deliver for everybody.
Emma, thank you. Yes, I would say that the driving motive behind cancer clinical trials is improving outcomes for patients. And they have a huge role to play in both the participation, in the design, in the outcomes of cancer clinical trials. And certainly Cancer Trials Ireland is fully committed to enhancing the number of patients involved in clinical trials, and also to increasing their role in the design and the selection of clinical trials. So yes, that is the way we are moving, and we can't get there quickly enough. Thank you.
Okay, so there's one last question that I'd like to hand over to Liam, who actually it's a comment from the panel to say that there are things that he would like to discuss about the impact of COVID on patient care, and then I think we will have run out of time, so I will then be handing over. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Yeah, just I suppose a comment, and I think Mark talked about it in his presentation, that I suppose the goal of cancer research, particularly the program that we're talking about, is really not looking at cancer in isolation. You know, cancer patients often also have comorbidities, and there is an intersection or a kind of relationship between those comorbidities and cancer, particularly in terms of treatment responses. So that's one specific area. The other thing I want to mention is that, you know, cancer research is clear that it's seeded lots of other areas. You know, for example, one concrete example of that is looking at the RNA vaccines, particularly which are being used in the COVID arena. The original development of these were particularly in the context of developing anti-cancer vaccines. So a lot of the last 10, 20 years of the work was really looking at using these for developing anti-cancer treatments. And the other good example of that is the use of sequencing. Again, you know, one of the main kind of initial kind of forays into sequencing were driven in the areas of cancer research. And now you can see that being used, obviously, in the COVID arena. So again, I think what you have when you have a big cancer research program, it not only benefits cancer patients, but it benefits the entire health ecosystem to have a solid cancer research program.
So I'd like to thank everybody and hand over now to Margaret Harty of Intertrade Ireland. So thank you very much, Margaret.
Thank you, Emma. And can I just say thank you, a massive thank you to all of our speakers today. It is really encouraging and very much uplifting on a day like this, on World Cancer Day, to hear about the tremendous cancer research work taking place on this island in particular. Intertrade Ireland, as a cross-border body, has been a long-time supporter and promoter of all-island cancer research. We are keen to continue our facilitation role between research networks and departments of health on the island, and with our friends, of course, in the United States. The new All-Island Cancer Consortium Memorandum of Understanding, which has been mentioned here this morning and which is being finalised at the moment, will ensure continued cross-border collaboration on cancer research and hopefully lead to more opportunities for cross-jurisdictional cancer trials. And Intertrade Ireland is very much proud to be part of this process. A recent economic impact study demonstrated how cancer trial activity has proven both economic and health benefits. And we've heard a lot of reference to that this morning in terms of the startup industry and behind this, and that's really to be encouraged. So we know that cross-border collaboration in this area supports economies of scale and scope that are of mutual benefit to both jurisdictions on this island. So back to Intertrade Ireland, we're delighted to have been able to support this fantastic event, and we very much look forward to hearing about the new collaborations that are developing and will develop in the future. And can I just close by saying thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.